the Electoral Code of Conduct, which I'm sure you all have appended your signatures to,
yes.
And agreed to that. I'd like to bring to your attention the specific one, and to our viewers as well. It reads, it shall be a breach of the code for any candidate and or their supporters to directly and or indirectly bribe and treat and whatsoever to influence or induce members. Now, many people have said these campaigns that are taking place in the Law Society of Kenya are a matter of do or die. It is a matter of life and death, and that quite a bit of money is being spent on your campaigns as opposed to the principle of using, you know, your influence and speaking and reaching out to candidates. Alan, I'd like to talk to you about the effect of money in this campaign. Has there been a breach of the code, do you think, by yourself or the members?
Absolutely not.
Right.
This is what has been happening is this: you have to go around the country and to meet members. Now, members there would organize, for example, forums for you to come and meet the people.
Okay.
We've always seen every forum, every town we've gone to, myself, James, and Isaac, would always post that we thank, for example, Eldoret for meeting us and treating us to a sumptuous dinner. Those are Isaac's words, for example. Same thing has happened all over. Now, you cannot come up and say that if lawyers have invited you for lunch or dinner, then you're bribing them, yet they're the ones who've invited you at their own cost. Okay. Secondly, it's an insult to the intelligence of lawyers to think that they'll be bribed by water or food to change the voting pattern. The whole issue of voting is based on what you bring on the table and the experience and professionalism that you will bring to the members. Okay. So this issue of saying, for example, Bible and trading, if you look at that particular rule further, if you read it further, it says refrain from voting. No one has been asked to refrain from voting. People will just listen to the debates of the
But it also
candidates.
talks about using that to influence or induce members of the society. Specifically with you, Alan, I'd like to show you a poster, and this is from a gig or an event that you have put together, and it was earlier this week. If we can have that up on our Super Wall just so we can take a look at it. And you know, it seems to be quite the party. And it's organized by Code Red DJs will be present. This is at Bond's restaurant. Hashtag 1,000 advocates, hashtag LSK decides. Many say that this is an obvious breach of this code, that you are spending money and you're taking 1,000+ advocates to the Bonds restaurant in Upper Hill. You know, that this is cheating. May not necessarily be bribing, but it may be treating the members of society and trying to influence them against the breach, against the code that you have appended your signature to.
In fact, I find that quite amusing, because now when members say, look, we want to have the final submissions, we want to hear what you have to say, and they organize a gig like that. And to be honest, quite a number of advocates, even from Moko LSK, turned up. I think they also support my candidature, as simple as that. In fact, the point is, let me tell you the truth of the matter. The number of advocates who turned up for that event were about 1,200. That's about almost a fifth of the advocates in Nairobi.
Alan, who was paying for this?
But members got together and contributed.
All right, but it still goes against the breach, doesn't it? Because it still goes against the code. Because it says it shall be a breach of the code for any candidate and or their supporters. So even though it's your supporters, would this not count as a breach, whether or not this was paid for by you?
It was, first of all, it was not paid by me in any event. It was organized by members who wanted to have a get-together. You see, the biggest challenge we've always had...
But this wasn't the first, though, was it, Alan?
This is the first in Nairobi, actually, of such a magnitude that members decided we need to meet the candidate.
Okay.
In fact, my brother James also had one. I think Isaac also said that he's also going to have one, but members will be given water. I saw it on social media. But the point is this. Last year in December, I asked for a presidential debate in council. I wrote to council and said, can we have a presidential debate? This is what we have now. But what I had in mind was a forum where we would meet the members. Let us be interrogated by the members so that they can make a conscientious decision.
But you've had a couple of those, including in Mombasa just recently.
Yes, when members invite you, would you turn it down as a politician?
All right, so you propose for that. You don't think that what you did in the meeting there constituted a breach of the code?
Absolutely not.
Isaac, do you agree?
I'm very pleased that we have all signed on to this code, and I'm rather looking forward to there being scrutiny of the conduct in which elections campaigns have been carried out to establish whether we have actually indeed adhered to this code, because as you've quite correctly pointed out, when we see events that large being put together, then it makes us all wonder.
the amounts of money that are being spent on this, and many people talk about this. I'll take you back to the last election, in fact, when Professor PLO Lumumba wrote a complaint to Eric Mutua asking for some candidates to be disqualified over alleged bribing. And this is an amount of money that is being spent nevertheless. And many people say, James, that the fact that a lot of money is being spent on this election then denies whoever comes at the helm of the LSK the moral authority to question the same of politicians who are doing the same thing at the national level.
The first thing is that lawyers are also people who are blessed. We are not, God has blessed us as a community. So that the issue of money should not be an issue that should really excite our minds. And the other thing which my learned friend has pointed out, I don't think you can buy a lawyer with food. Lawyers are fairly well off. But you see, the other thing that you have is also this. When you want to address the members of the Law Society, do you go under a tree, for example? Where do you meet them? And the only place that members of, like the members of the branches call for meetings are in the hotels, when they are sitting down, either drinking water or drinking tea, listening to you. At the end of the day, members will make an independent choice. I do not think that there has been treating, at least in my campaign, we have been very professional about the way we go about this thing. And the issue of money, of people being given out money, lawyers aren't very well, and so I don't think that the issue of treating is going on.
All right, James, you bring up an important issue about lawyers doing very well. In fact, you're doing even much better after 2014, when Kenya's lawyers raised their fees by nearly 50%. Now, the feeling in society is that justice and access to legal assistance is fairly expensive for most people. Would you be willing to put in place a requirement for pro bono cases similar to your CPD points and say, okay, so we have this number of CPD points, but there's also pro bono cases? Because, James, there is a feeling that, like you say, lawyers are doing very well. And that this is out of it. Let me just tell you, and I'm sure this is something that you know, about the new fees. This is something that I find particularly interesting. So now, if one wants to file a civil suit that's valued at between 200,000 and 500,000 shillings, it'll cost a client 45,000 shillings.
Yes, I
and
think
for most ordinary Kenyans who would require lawyers' assistance, this is fairly high. Do you have a plan, James, and I'll get to the rest,
yes,
to make legal assistance more accessible to the common Mwananchi?
First of all, take my statement into context. I said that lawyers are doing very well. You can therefore not bribe them with food and drink.
But you did say, yes, but you did say they're doing very well.
That is the context in which I'm coming from. But
okay.
The other thing which you have asked about pro bono services, I have myself been a pro bono lawyer. I have represented members of the public, not just at the Kenyan level, but we have even done pro bono services at the regional level, where I have filed cases on behalf of the people of Burundi. We have also filed cases on behalf of the people of Uganda. We came up with a scheme to assist members of the public, and every time we have, there is a legal awareness week where lawyers offered free legal services. We also have a number of our members who belong to Kituo cha Sheria, who belong to Kenya Christian Lawyers, who are offering free legal services. But my presidency will even go further and make this a part and a parcel, because I am aware that in Uganda Law Society, for example, you do not get your practice certificate unless you have rendered some number of hours to members of the public.
What would your specific proposal on this be? Let's get some specific
I think that would be a very good
you.
proposal, like the one that the Ugandans have come up with.
How many hours?
I think they do about, it's about 20 hours in a year to help, and you must demonstrate that indeed you took up matters on behalf of the public.
All right, so for you, how many would they be? I'm trying to get some specific commitments from you here.
I will have to consult the members so that we agree on the way forward.
So this is not something you have thought about
no,
then?
I have thought about it very, very carefully. But you see, when you want to come up with hours on an issue that involves members, you have to consult our members. We have been talking about consultation, which is an important thing, and it's in my vision that I will always be consulting the members who agree on some of these things.
Yes. You're well blessed, you're well paid?
No, I wouldn't say that, and I think that statement makes a generalization that most lawyers will not recognize. First of all, there are many lawyers right across the Republic who offer services to the general public, knowing very well that they have difficulties in meeting the fees that are stipulated in the advocate's remuneration order. Many of them, in fact, are compelled to offer pro bono services because they cannot turn away a client who is in distress. But then another thing that your statement, I think, overlooks is that there is a large proportion of young lawyers who are in employment. And in employment, they don't necessarily see the benefits that accrue to well-heeled lawyers. Those concerns of these young lawyers must be addressed. They are, as a matter of fact, right now, very much distressed by sometimes fairly unfair working conditions that they are required to be subjected to. It's the responsibility of the Law Society of Kenya to make sure that their interests are taken care of, and I will make sure under my presidency that young lawyers in employment are not overlooked in this respect.
All right, how about pro bono cases? I'd like a commitment from you on that. Is this something you think that is important? Because that is the feeling amongst, even with the feedback that we're getting, that we only see big-time lawyers and, you know, doing all of these big cases, and they're up against the prosecutors, you know, who are fairly not as well blessed as you are.
Do you know there are countless lawyers who are doing good work out there who do not attract the attention of the press? So the misconception that is created by just a handful, a few lawyers who are constantly in the news earning big fees and speaking of big fees is not in any way a representation of the number of lawyers out there doing good work. Would you want this as a
requirement, Isaac?
I think there should be strengthened and institutionalized the concept of pro bono. But I know for a fact that pro bono litigation and the pro bono services are offered. It's very much more common outside Nairobi, where many Kenyans are unable to necessarily meet the cost of lawyers, but lawyers are still determined to provide them with services and are compelled to do so under circumstances of pro bono.
All right, Alan, it's now happening on a rather philanthropic basis for lawyers. Again, because this is something that many Kenyans want to know. Requirement, is that something you would put in place?
Well, I agree with my brothers on one thing. This is one thing that we as a society must get together and agree upon. There's no point of, for example, I make a promise, then my members say, did you consult us on that? But one thing I need to point out, number one, first of all, on the issue of the remuneration order. As far as the remuneration order is concerned, I've been part and parcel of the remuneration orders in 2006 and 2014 with a great team of advocates. It went through public participation, and we came up with reasonable fees based on the inflationary trends. For example, if we charge 1.5%, what about the architects who charge 4%? Or the quantity surveyors will charge about 4 to 5%, for example. We are about the lowest in the professional market. And when you look at the issue, you mentioned 45,000 shillings, look at the duration of time it takes because of the delays in cases. One case that's filed today could probably take 1 or 2, 3 years. It's a loss to the lawyers. It's a loss to the client. But that is one of the issues that we want to bring about. But coming to the issue of pro bono, one aspect of the thing that we need to engage the government on is under Article 50, the requirement that the state shall provide legal services to the accused persons. Now, that has not come out, and we as a society will have to work with the government to come up with ways and means of assisting the poor Kenyans who are in remand, whose cases have stagnated because of lack of a lawyer. Yet it's a constitutional mandate on the government. We are ready to assist. That I can assure you. It's just the framework that needs to be put in place.